Welcome to Hobby Palooza 2025. Hello everyone, I'm Orlando from A Collector's Dream, and I'm honored this year to be your Hobby Palooza ambassador. This year, we're once again proud to support Signatures for Soldiers, a non-profit helping disabled veterans through the power of sports autographs. As you know, we're accepting donations all weekend long, and for every $10 that you donate, you'll earn one raffle entry for some amazing prizes. The preferred way to donate is through Zelle in your banking app to the email jecoffma@yahoo.com, jecoffma@yahoo.com. If Zelle is not an option, use PayPal, goods and services to the same email. Let's go ahead and beat last year's total of over $5,800. This hour of Hobby Palooza is brought to you by the Penny Sleever, who are generously donating 10% of this week's sales at thepennysleever.com to Signatures for Soldiers. The Penny Sleever, as you know, has top quality supplies at fair prices. Enjoy the show and have some fun.
All right. Welcome back to Spitballin Hobby Palooza Cards. This is a fun, different situation than normal. We did this last year. It was a lot of fun, and we're grateful to be back on the show. With that being said, what we kind of want to discuss, and this can go all sorts of ways, but the very first thing is, what do you do when a card you like goes up in value, right? We have cards where we buy it as a 10, 20-year hold. You know, it's the vision of the card, but then it doubles in a few months. Phil, you've had an example of that we discussed. I don't know if you're comfortable sharing. I recently had offers on some cards that I wasn't planning on selling. I'm surprised it even went up that much, but sometimes you got to make the tough decision of selling. How do you do that? What do you think, Phil?
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because the logical way to answer it is if you have a goal coming in for holding it for a certain amount of time and or, you know, part of that is it increasing 30, 50, 70%. And also potentially there's a better place in the hobby to put your money at that current moment. So like, where are your funds best spent at that given time, regardless of how much you paid for it, regardless of your thesis. So there's that angle too. But because cards are all very unique, if you pick the right player, the right card, and it's rare, and you're worried about not being able to buy it back ever again, because it's so rare with some of the, you know, patch cards that a few of us have, or it could be a Bowman Chrome auto red or even an orange of the right player, right? When is it okay to say no? Even if, and we're talking, you know, there's been instances where I had a card that I just bought and I wanted to hold it for 3 years and I wanted it to like 3x ideally. And maybe it wouldn't, but that was my goal, right? But a month later, I was getting offers $20,000 more than what I paid, right? Double what I paid. So is it stupid to say no, even though you pulled forward basically 2 years worth of gains into 1 month, knowing that most of those gains happened in that 1 month? Is it stupid to say no? Because to me, it was a no-brainer. And some of this goes into the emotions of collecting, owning cards, right? Sometimes it's really hard to say yes. Sometimes it's really hard to let go of the right card because you know you won't have it again. But is that really rational? Because it might be okay for you not to have that card ever again. I could buy a different Ohtani. It might not be the same, but it could be special in its own way. Arguably even better. So some of the things that I've come across, and I think Scott, with the Judge card or with a specific card that you held, you had a similar dilemma over the last few months, I think, as well, where you were getting stupid offers on it. So I don't know if Chris, Ty, if you guys have any similar thoughts there.
I have a lot of thoughts on this topic, actually. There's always a price for everything. Like I doubt that most people actually have a single card in their PC that wouldn't have a price, an astronomical one that they wouldn't like move the card for. Like, and you can, I mean, it's just at a point, money talks. And I'll give you a perfect example. I have this card. I'm going to show you. Ooh. Some of the viewers may know, like my first big collection, I'm super collector in the, you know, hobby is around basketball, specifically for Andre Drummond. So Drummond Card Collector is the Instagram that I've used over the years. And this card in particular is the 2018 Prism Black 1 of 1. I think I bought this card for around $200 or $225 before Prism Blacks really blew up, especially 2018. There is somebody who I'm not going to name who is trying, perhaps boldly and maybe impossibly, to collect the entire set of 2018 Prism Black, one of ones for basketball specifically. And that person messaged me like 3 years ago inquiring about this card and saying, I'm really interested, and telling me like, I'm trying to do this crazy feat and I really need this card. And we had some back and forth. And for a couple months, honestly, was like, it's not for sale. I'm not going to do it. It's not going to happen. And then he started sending me offers, and he was offering me cards, but the cards totaled up to about $2,200 in value for a Andre Drummond card that I paid like $200 for. And I was like, well, I have the whole rainbow. That's what hurts about it. Like, I have the whole rainbow. And if I lose this, I no longer have the whole rainbow. I guess I can say I did it, and then I moved on. Well, we had some exchange, and then there was this bizarre moment where I was like, well, the cards you're offering me aren't ones I'm necessarily interested in, but if you had other stuff, maybe I would consider it. And then he just ghosted me, which was super odd. And it just kind of drove me nuts. He wanted to offer me like a bunch of tennis cards that I didn't really want, but had value, but I didn't want them. So the point being, when you get to a certain price point, even for your main PC, even when you're a super collector, even when you have like one of only like 6 rainbows completed on a given set for any player in the world, money starts to talk, and you're like, man, maybe I would, get rid of this. And I think that's kind of the lesson in is you can buy a card and be like, wow, I'm really excited about this. And then suddenly the card isn't, somebody wants it significantly more with a bigger budget, and you just can't afford not to let it go. And there's other stuff that you could then buy with those proceeds that would make a lot more sense for your collection, or you just keep playing the game.
Chris, does that happen to you?
Yeah, actually, I wanted to just quickly say, thanks for joining us. This charity sounds fantastic. One of you guys mentioned every card has a price. I think Ty just said it. And as soon as you said that, I'm just going to take a minute and show you one card from my collection that does not. All right. So this is an Ultra SP at a flagship of Freddie Freeman catching the last out of the World Series.
$1 million.
What?
$1 million.
Well, I mean, I think that's unrealistic.
Well, I'm just...
All right, outside of $1 million. But I mean, this is like arguably my favorite baseball moment of my adult life. And it's on a card. It's perfect. And it's an SSP. I don't know. I posted that on Instagram. I got some offers that seemed silly. And I was just like, no, like can't do it. But yeah, I would say within reason, because people aren't going to offer me $1 million for a baseball card. That's a little silly. But yeah, I bought an Ohtani a little while ago. Posted it on Instagram. We put it on our YouTube channel, and I did get some offers that were like way more than I paid. But I like the thing that Phil said that was really kind of resonating with me is we like these cards. I'm a collector more than an investor by far. I lie to my wife and tell her it's the other way around, but that's very clearly not true. So like these cards mean more to me than money. Now, obviously there is a point where money should win, but like, I don't know, like Phil said, I could probably buy a different Ohtani, but this is just really cool, and I love it, and it looks awesome. And I don't know if I sold it today, if I'd ever have a chance to get that card back in my collection. I could get other Ohtanis, like similar to what Phil said, but that one feels like, for me, for what I like to collect, that card is like, it's perfect. It's everything I want in a card. So I'd almost rather sell 90% of my collection if I needed the money, like for car repair or home repair or something. I think that would be one of the last 5 cards I'd ever sell. Yeah. I'd rather take a loss on other cards than take a win on that one.
Yeah,
that's how you know you like a card. I'm in the same boat where I'd rather sell a card for exactly what I paid or a little bit of a haircut in order to keep a different card. And me saying I'll take a haircut is really saying something. So it's just one of those things where I have sold cards I never plan to sell because the prices go up too much, and you just can't. You have to take the profit sometimes. It depends on how you're looking at cards. If you look at completely as a hobby, you don't have to take that profit ever. And then your kids can worry about it later on. But we've seen that cards don't always go up. And so if it's going up, might want to take advantage of that player's little hype cycle or the market hype cycle, because it's not always going to be that way. It feels like it's always going to be that way when you're holding all the Shohei Ohtani cards and you're seeing those big sales. But I don't want to jinx anything. It's always an injury away, right? And so then that big profit you could have made drops, then you feel just as bad. Loss aversion is a big thing where you feel a lot worse about the money you could have made versus the money you do make. So you just have to take the wins sometimes, is my advice. I do take the wins, even though I'm sad I sell a lot of cards. So
yeah, a lot of people use the phrase or the justification, I don't need the cash right now. I don't need the money. And while that might seem like it has that argument might be a little bit viable, usually you can always use the cash. If not now, then maybe for the next opportunity. We go through cycles, economically speaking, macro wise, where cash is trash. Well, how long does that usually last? It goes in cycles. Then eventually you want the cash, you want the money. And at some point you will need to use it, or you should use it, or there'll be a place for it, or you'll wish that you had sold that card to have it. And kind of a funny story. There was a guy that walked into a card show, and he came in with the 1-of-1 J-Rod from the silver packs from 2022 Topps Chrome. So one of J-Rod's most coveted rookie cards, arguably his best non-auto. He came in with it, and he walked over to Card Vault, who sets up there before they partnered with Tom Brady. They're still a pretty big operation at the time. They were the biggest player in there to be able to give him an offer. They gave him an offer for $50,000. He said it was a low ball. He didn't bother countering, and he kind of just walked away, and he said he wanted $100,000. That might have been the peak of J-Rod, and you can't control that, J-Rod's market. It could have went in a different direction, and maybe be worth even more today. But he said to me and my friend Amit, I don't need the money. And my friend Amit goes, he didn't need the money, but he needed a shower, just because he did not look like a guy that was too well off. So his priorities were, that's like kind of a separate issue. Sometimes you think you don't need the money, but this guy probably could have used the money. Like the breath smelled like tobacco, Lucky Strike cigarettes, something like that. Something pretty heavy there. But yeah. Sometimes it's easier to judge a situation where you're like outside of it versus emotionally invested, which it seemed like that guy certainly was.
So speaking of which, do you have something, Chris, first before?
I was going to say that like you had said it earlier, Scott, like taking a profit does feel good. And it is, I do stay up at night more thinking about cards I didn't sell than anything that I have sold. Like I don't have any huge Tatis cards, but I have like 3 reasonable, like nice Tatis cards. And right now they're worth about 20%, if not less than what they were like at their peak. And I'm bummed because that's not a guy. I don't root for the Padres. I don't love that guy, but I was a little bit greedy internally. I was like, oh no. Like he led the NL in home runs. Like this guy's taken off. I'm not going to sell yet. And I like to think that maybe I learned a little something when his career started to fall apart a little bit, but I'm not 100% sure that I did.
You know what gets to me? I'll be looking at recent sales comps, just like scrolling through. Sometimes I just type in players into sales history and market movers, and I'll just be looking at like what sold for the most or over the last week. We talk about that on Spitballin a lot too, like notable sales. And I'll see something that sold for a price that I just feel like was a steal, and then compare it to other things that I own, like hindsight is 2020, opportunity cost. Like, shoot, I would have sold, this card or other body parts, as people in the chat are saying, for that card had I seen it, but I didn't see it. And there's like almost like a missed FOMO that happens to me even more acutely than real FOMO. We were looking at, I was slacking you guys yesterday, like Zach Wheeler's Bowman Chrome Superfractor auto that sold in 2023 for like $1,200. And it was like, I mean, that's crazy. Like to have, one of the better pitchers of right now, maybe Cy Young this year. Obviously he's just been fantastic. And he's from Dallas, Georgia, where I originally moved to when we moved to Atlanta. So I've got some emotional connectivity to there. I saw that card and I'm like, man, there's a lot of stuff in my PC that I would probably pool up, like, or maybe a single card and get rid of to like have that card if I had seen it, and I never did. So yeah, there's a lot of that for me, just like almost like things that you can't buy. I should probably spend less time doing that and more just looking at Fanatics Collect and eBay and other sites to see if there's stuff I do want.
So here's a question. I know there was a question about Judge versus Ohtani. We can talk about that. But before we do, is an example of this Cal Raleigh someone that you need to sell right now? Or do we think that those players holding his cards can wait? Because the way I look at it is I like to buy certain players as they're like on a Hall of Fame path, but don't quite have the hobby recognition yet. And then you can take advantage of when people say, oh, they're a Hall of Famer. And then the average person says that. But after a while, not every player, look at the 90s and the 80s and the 70s, has like infinitive like up movement. They have their peaks and then they flatline and drop. is now like someone like Cal Raleigh, someone you need to sell if you got in early, in your opinion?
Maybe performance-wise, he hasn't peaked this year. I think he has 38 home runs, was it? First half. But I think the buzz certainly peaked during the All-Star break for him. So I just can't see how he can get any more legs unless he wins the MVP. For that to happen, Judge needs to have a serious injury soon, in my opinion. Or he's been slumping a little bit, right? Is his batting average down to the 340s yet?
Still 350s. It's funny his slumps are like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Raleigh, we would have said probably sell 2-3 weeks ago. We would have been wrong because his stuff's probably doubled or tripled since. But
you can't time the top though. You know what I mean? But it's one of those things where while we can't time the top on Raleigh, do we feel like in 12, 18, 3 years that his prices will be even remotely close to this?
You might not be selling at the peak, but right now you're definitely selling into strength for Raleigh. And if you stretch that time period out wider, it's going to look smarter and smarter that you sold now or this month versus 12 months from now, most likely.
Yeah, he just won the home run derby with his dad pitching and his brother catching. I mean, that's got to be peak Cal Raleigh moments. I mean, he was more on SportsCenter during the All-Star break than I think he has been ever in his life.
Now he's sponsoring porta potties too. So I mean, we're
the big dumpers sponsoring the honey bucket. I love it.
Perfect.
Other players are tweeting him.
If Cal Raleigh, like this is what this happens every year. There's always some athlete in every sport who like blows up kind of out of nowhere. Maybe not totally out of nowhere, but they just go into that upper echelon. And it's just it's like dilemma. You don't know what they're going to do. A year ago, though, we were talking about Aaron Judge it's probably a little more than a year ago now. It might've been a year ago, but we were all talking about him. And I was squarely on the side of like, sell Aaron Judge. I had the same feeling that he had hit such a high height that the odds was that he wouldn't keep doing it. Just based on all players across all sports with historical precedent, I find I always play the odds, maybe almost even like against better judgment. You look at somebody like him and you're like, well, if somebody can do it, he probably can. If somebody can do it, Shohei Ohtani can. But I always find myself going, well, like 98 out of 100 guys don't. They hit like a level, maybe for 2 years, maybe 3, and then they just fizzle. It's so hard to maintain that level. And Judge has just come out again this year with like an almost 8 WAR at the All-Star break, and you're like, okay, he proved me wrong. But with Raleigh, if he were to continue this streak, I think he's on pace for 67 or 68 home runs for the year. If he were to continue this exact pace. And that would be pretty impressive. And his cards would continue to go up in price. Like they actually, if you compare them to other athletes right now, are still very cheap in spite of being up like 300 to 800%, depending on the card since the start of the season. But the odds of that happening seem slim. It seems like he'll probably finish with like 54 home runs or something. And you'll just be like, well, that was a really, really incredible season that people will forget. Who knows?
Aaron Judge split the Spitballers up almost pretty like even in half. I think, 3-2. I think Phil and I were high on it. That's like, we got to take our wins when we can. We're not always right. So go Phil and me. But it's one of those things where you are betting against history. And that's the hard part is I would rather not bet against history on average and take the profit and then be proven wrong the one time in like the black swan moment versus the opposite where I'm banking on this big event to happen that doesn't happen 99.9% of the time. So that's just my thought process. I buy and sell probably the most of everybody here though, I would say. So take that for what it's worth.
Yeah. I mean, how many people have that extensive an injury history in their like mid to late 20s and then stay healthy in their 30s?
Yeah.
Like it just doesn't really happen. But it is happening. So I guess we have to tip our cap. Like I did hear Aaron Boone was talking about how Judge has really worked on like focusing his body, his workouts on staying healthy, like more flexibility, trying to be like an anti-Stanton in a way. Who is still watching him run makes all my joints hurt.
It's
like
so funny.
Every time I see him run, I have to go stretch my hamstrings. Like it just my whole body gets tight, but not in a good way.
Chris, how old are you?
Let's not get into that. Don't attack the one guy on the screen with hair. I'm 46 years old.
What's the last?
I think you run way better than Stan at 35. That's the crazy thing for him. It makes no sense.
It is what it is. But I want to say personally, I was also one of the reasons I was not anti-Judge, but like not really betting on Judge was during his 62 home run season at the trade deadline in a dynasty fantasy league that I'm in. I traded Aaron Judge and I got back the worst player you could possibly have gotten back at that moment.
Javier Baez?
No.
Oh.
Wow, that's offensive that you would even suggest such a.
Cody
such a-
Bellinger.
First ballot Hall of Fame. Or
Nope. This was like late July of 2022.
2022, who was hot in late July?
Yep, I got a first round pick the next year.
Kyle
Julio.
Lewis. No, I don't.
Julio.
No.
I don't know.
Wander Franco.
Oh,
I was just about to
literally the worst.
The absolute worst. Yeah.
Oh.
So that one hurts me. So I blame Aaron Judge for it, even though it's my fault. Well, not my fault, but Wander's fault.
Aaron Judge for it.
So that does that did keep me from over investing in Aaron Judge. I should say.
So Double D vintage baseball cards. Good guy. What's up? A lot of comments, a lot of good questions. I think we should address one of his questions. Is there still room today in Aaron Judge and Ohtani cards? I'll answer this first with a very cold, potentially hot take. And I'm not a financial advisor. This isn't financial advice. I don't understand your risk tolerance. So understand that. Do your own due diligence. Blah 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 blah.
Whatever Phil says, do. Cash out the 401k and do.
Let me put this into ChatGPT quick and read the whole disclaimer. All right.
Yeah.
All right,
There are two ways that you can still make money off Ohtani and Judge that aren't even really directly related to their performance. And it's similar to Mike Trout like 5, 6, 7 years ago. And so
Does it involve ePay?
Number one is the market gets bigger for ultra modern baseball specifically. Fanatics marketing, a lot of different ways that could play out. Those have to be singles buyers, right? Those could technically be more repackers, right? Because those are singles buyers too, to bring up that market. But if the market grows, the beta, I would argue, for ultra modern baseball right now is best measured in Ohtani and Judge. Specifically talking about ultra modern, not vintage or anything like that. Completely different market, much less risky, less volatile. The other way is that you can make money off Judge and Ohtani that doesn't have to do with their performance. So ideally, Judge would still win the MVP this year, right? That's kind of baked in at this point. What we're talking the off season, his stuff could still go up, say in like December, January, February, based off of not just cyclicality with the season coming back, because that's like short term, and that could get, you'd lose that 15% bump as soon as April rolls around for most players. But it has to do with a rotation from more risky, less proven or unproven players. So less proven, your Nick Kurtz's, others that kind of flame out this year. Maybe Nick Kurtz keeps it up. I'm not just trying to pick on him. Then you have the less proven guys like the Kyle Tuckers that may or may not be on a Hall of Fame trajectory. I'm more talking about the guys that aren't really, don't have that solid case yet, like a Kyle Tucker. You get money that comes out of those guys and into the more sure things for ultra modern. And this is like, this is kind of in effect, kind of like rotating out of your risky stuff. A lot of collectors, investors getting burnt, and then putting it into more proven, although still carrying risk, especially at today's prices. Ohtani and Judge, those would be like the two guys that I think will continue to separate themselves more and more from everybody else below them. Sorry, Juan Soto. Sorry, Bobby Witt Jr. They could still have a bright future. I just think 3 to 5 years out, Ohtani and Judge together are more likely to just dominate everybody else, right?
So here's a counter argument, just for argument's sake. Not that I think you're wrong, but look at Mike Trout. We said the exact same thing about Mike Trout from 2012 to 2020, and now nobody wants his cards. It's the weirdest thing. Like his auctions now are lower than they've been in the last 5 or 10 years. Like I was able to buy a card of his recently that I wanted, where I offered more than double what I just paid, and nobody would take my offer. So I think the one player that really can avoid even that is like an Ohtani, because even over Judge, right? If Judge has another bad postseason, Father Time hits him just like it's hitting like Mookie Betts this year, have a bad year, it's easy for them to drop. But I think Ohtani may be more safe individually just because of historical, comps and relevance. But I agree with you overall, Phil. But that's just the counter argument. Mike Trout, look at him. You could also argue that Mike Trout's not fair because he had his peak before the hobby boom. So 80% of the collectors only remember his cards being hot. There's that argument too. So,
right.
What do you think, Chris?
Oh man. I mean, I generally agree with what you were saying, that I don't think there's any other place I would rather put If I'm buying a big card, it's one of those two guys. Like I can't talk myself into anyone else at this point, even as a Braves fan. Like I can't see, like, I love Acuña like more than most members of my family, but I still would not like put a huge amount of money into his cards right now. I will say, I think there's two things that could really, there's really only one thing for Judge that I think can really, at this point, we've seen he's got us to keep staying healthy, but let's assume that's happening. Can I share my screen on this?
You can try.
All right, let's give it a shot.
Let's see if you have permission.
Let's see. All right.
If not, they can add it to the stage if they're cool.
Okay. If Aaron Judge has this card in flagship next year, then I think we can assume every card of his has gone up like possibly 50%. If he can do that, then there is, his cards will massively jump. And if Ohtani wins World Series MVP this year, if he, that's really the one thing he was lacking last year. He didn't really have that huge World Series moment. He had a great series against the Mets, huge home run against the Padres, but he got hurt in the World Series and didn't really do much. But they still won. He still gets this card. And God, every time I see Yamamoto on this card, I smile. But yeah, if Judge can get a trophy in New York, then I think the sky is the limit.
Well, let's hope that doesn't happen this year, because I've got other rooting interests.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. I don't know. It's one of those things. That's why I do like Judge and Ohtani both. There's still like a clear pathway for value for both of them, right? Mm-hmm. Ohtani getting that 4th MVP, Ohtani pitching really well, Ohtani pitching in the postseason, Ohtani winning a World Series MVP as a pitcher and a hitter. Like there's a real pathway there for Judge. Okay. If he can just have another, 60 home run season this year, and then a 50 home run season next year, and has an okay postseason, has a good postseason, even if they don't win, I think he could see his card spike. It's just
he needs like that a big postseason moment. He almost had it last year. That homer off of Class A was huge, but the Yankees ended up losing that game, and the moment gets almost washed away.
I watch a lot of Yankees games now because of Judge and Goldschmidt. And it's amazing whenever Judge has a big hit, it's always washed away by the Yankees bullpen. It's mind blowing. Like he recently tied the game in the 9th inning off of Garrett. Oh, what's his name? Crochet to tie the game. Yankees lose. He hits the home run off of Class A. Yankees lose. It's one of those things where he's doing his thing. But yes, Aaron Boone, man, terrible managing. And on top of that, the Yankees bullpen just has no ability to hold a lead. It's insane.
Yeah, and I think when we think of Aaron Judge in the playoffs, unfortunately, the image we have is a negative one, and that stinks. And that probably hurts non-Yankee fans getting involved. Or maybe it actually hurts Yankee fans getting involved more. I don't know.
I will say, though, time heals all wounds, especially with postseason numbers. You don't remember that Willie Mays had a terrible postseason career. You don't remember that Stan Musial had a 600 OPS in the World Series. It's like you don't remember those things. Yes, they both have one. That's the difference, but you don't remember.
I watched those games because of the way my brain is wired. I would remember it, but I all I remember is the catch. Mays has the catch in the World Series, so the numbers don't even matter.
We've
one of the most famous plays ever.
We've debated postseason numbers on end, so maybe we should just turn to a different angle. Was there anything else in the chat that we wanted to address?
By the way, we're not actually raising these comments ourselves. Yeah, that's why they're kind of rotating one to the next to the next to the next. So Rick, Vintage Oddball Cards, brings up, will any of these cards, are any of these going to hold their value 10 years from now? It's always the next player, which is interesting. And we did an episode on that. The Judge and Ohtani are a little bit safer, but with Ohtani, we didn't talk about this. It seems like, based on our current sentiment here, that we believe that Ohtani is a safer play than Judge. But looking at supply of cards, of desirable cards across the two, it's a night and day. There's so much more. It's almost like resistance for Ohtani cards to hit the next level, because there's just so many, and there's always so many being up for sale at any given time. Where with Judge, one Bowman Chrome Auto versus two just goes on and on. He's just got fewer desirable cards. But that, it's a valuable question for like a second year Ohtani card, or like I know somebody in this chat probably owns like a Topps Finest base. I know, Chris, you like the refractor of Ohtani because it's a hitting post.
I do like the Finest card,
yeah, maybe a bad example. Maybe like an Aaron Judge Stadium Club card. It's like shitty brand, off-brand, like tier 7, right? Just kidding, Chris. But there are like the lesser desirable rookie cards, as well as like the second, third year numbered stuff. Some of that stuff's more in question. And then when you go out like further, like 25, 30, 50 years, then it's even more scary because we have no idea what's going to be in demand. The hierarchy that all of us have in our heads, where like Dynasty's close to the top, Bowman Chrome is at the top, and then you've got the MLB debut patch, which doesn't affect these guys. All of that is in question when you go out more than 5-10 years, especially.
Well, I have a question based on that.
Ooh.
If we were projecting between now and 2030, cards only, and you had to pick 3 names from baseball, any era, all time, could be vintage, could be any era, any time, 3 players, who would you say if you wanted to put money into these guys for a, let's call it a healthy 7 to 10% year over year to 2030, who would the 3 players you would name would be between now and 2030?
I have 2. I'm going to steal one from Phil, and he's going to be mad. But Barry Bonds. Barry Bonds.
I would say Bonds.
He's getting more popularity right now than ever. It's like the younger generations don't realize like how much people hated him outside of just also cheating.
Yep.
So Barry Bonds, and then Shohei Ohtani's up there. I think as his career ages, he is going to be in the limelight from now until he's done playing. Like Major League Baseball has an obsession with him. They have the biggest market with him. They put him on every single post because it has the widest reach on social media. Ohtani has grown this game. Like you can't argue it. So I think he's number 2. Number 3 is debatable. I think Aaron Judge could be there. He's a little bit older, so 2030 is hard. You know, because at 2030 he'll be over 40, I believe, or right around 40. So I don't know. Outside of those 2, it's tough. Who's your?
I'd probably go. I would Barry Bonds. I would go Bonds, Ohtani, and then I would probably go Mantle or Mays. And I think Mays may have a little more upside. Mantle's already high, and I can't see that gap necessarily continuing to grow between he and Mays. But I could be wrong. But either of those guys to me stand out.
Yeah, I think I'd pick Mantle, which I never thought I would say because I know Mays was better overall. His numbers are better, but there's just some weird, obsession connection to Mantle. Yeah, that's just
the
plus,
Yankee thing.
He did win a lot of World Series. He's a legend for the Yankees. Phil's saying it all.
The 52 Mantles have been very healthy over the last year. They've been doing really
here's
well.
one. Charizard.
Well, I said baseball, but I was going to go there. But Phil or Chris, what were you guys going to say?
I see. Am I in an echo chamber, by the way, with Barry Bonds? I see more Bonds social media posts than any other retired
Maybe
player.
a little bit, but not a big one. Like
It was
maybe
an echo chamber wise.
I mean, I'm in an echo chamber with certain players too.
Yeah,
but
I don't see much with like Griffey flashbacks. I see a lot of Bonds stuff.
I have a thought on that, but you keep going, Phil.
So some of it has to do with like the war obsessed culture that we have. We judge everybody based on war, which favors Bonds. Some of it has to do with these historic offensive seasons like Judge and Raleigh that. Well, more so Judge all around that he's putting up, and you get compared to Bonds as a benchmark. And whatever your opinion of Bonds is or mine, it doesn't really matter because it's just one opinion. Look at Twitter comments, Instagram comments that compare Bonds versus maybe a questionably clean player, a clean player, or another dirty player. And there's just a lot of positive sentiment towards Bonds, more than I would have ever expected like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when I was saying he shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame. Now, I don't really know. I'm not an expert. It's subjective. I don't know. You could say yes, you could say no. You could make a case either way with Barry Bonds. Yes, he tainted the game. Yes, like he was somewhat of a scapegoat, right? Yes, a lot of other people cheated. And WAR is a ballpark adjusted, a league adjusted stat. So he, his WAR number was versus the rest of the offensive players, which others were largely cheating too. Did their heads double in size? Okay, we don't need to go down this rabbit hole, but yeah, Bonds is definitely on there for me, probably Ohtani. And yeah, I think one of the vintage guys makes sense. Could even be Jackie Robinson, Mantle, Mays. I wouldn't pick Pete Rose. Judge, you could even make a case for.
I think Judge you have a good case for. I know Silver Jackify's here, and he's a big Yankees guy. I do think there's a case for Judge. I really do. Jeter, I think Griffey's being hurt by Bonds a little bit, if I'm being honest. I think, like you already mentioned that, I think he has been impacted. And again, for example, I was too young to remember that all. And younger people are getting into baseball. They don't know Griffey's swag and how much he meant to people back then. They just look at the numbers, and Bonds was significantly better than Griffey. So it's just one of those things where I think that's changing a little bit. But Jeter has the same thing going for him as Mantle, which is kind of crazy, which is just a lot of championships for the most popular team in sports history. So even he probably will age well, if I'm being honest. Usually 2 to 3 players from any given generation do well. So I think that's how it looks.
Wow.
Thanks, Silverjackify.
Nice. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I have 3. Ohtani, certainly. Absolutely. I think I'm excited to watch him pitch in the playoffs. Pitching Ohtani is an insane animal. Very different than the polite, apologetic hitting Ohtani, who's always worried about where his foul balls are going. Pitching Ohtani wants to kill you, and I really like watching him on the mound. I think it's great. I was actually going to say Bonds too, and I'm not really a big 90s guy, but I mean, I've seen Bonds like you guys are talking about. I see him around on social media a lot more than I ever thought he would, and I don't care what he took. I think the Hall of Fame is being a little bit ridiculous. Once they put Bud Selig in, who let it all happen in the first place, I think it's crazy to blame the players. But I enjoyed watching those games. I will go on YouTube and watch Eric Gagne versus Barry Bonds because I feel like it's just, that's peak baseball right there.
It's a great story behind that. Do you know how they agreed? Yes. The whole thing. You should say it a little bit.
Oh yeah. Well, if you watch, there's a recent one that's been going around. They had they sort of made a deal that if they faced each other in the 9th inning and Bonds could not tie the game, then I think Gagne was just going to go at him with heaters. And he did. And we're talking like 102 inside, which even Barry said he thought his ribs were going to explode. And then he went like 101 away and Bonds hit it out to center field. So, I mean, if you could find some of those matchups on YouTube, like that's peak baseball. That's awesome. Mantle is crazy popular. And I think he's really important, I think, for us to look at as this hobby kind of moves forward. He isn't the greatest player ever. He was really, really good, like top 10 player, but his fame and like all the legends and the stories around him have kept his values higher than almost everybody. And I feel like we might, like, who could we say that about now if it's not Ohtani?
No
one. I don't know. Probably no one.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. Ohtani really is shaping up to be that guy. It's just there's not really any other argument. I've had arguments against Ohtani because he was so expensive, but it feels like there is no limit to his high-end cards at this point. His mid to low end, of course, there is, but high end, like he's going to have a lot of $1 million sales in the future, I think.
Yeah, I think so too, because a lot of it just gets locked away every year. All Dufects right. of Life here says Frank Thomas, and that's a great choice. Frank Thomas has been like almost really wrongly forgotten for how great he was.
But the Asian money for Ohtani is a good way to offset the higher number of desirable rookie cards.
I agree 100%.
So that's something that definitely helps.
I have a thought on Bonds. Go ahead, Scott. You say what you're going to say.
No, it's like one other thing. If we look at Frank Thomas, his numbers are great. Like realistically, he has 521 home runs, 301 batting average, 156 career OPS plus, 2 MVPs, like all these different things. He does not have a postseason success. He was on the White Sox and he's on multiple teams. So that's like how it ties to teams or legacy or championships. It's amazing how it does matter, even though it probably shouldn't as much as we make it.
Mm-hmm. I have a theory that's just that there's like age windows when people move into larger brackets of discretionary income. And if you trace the fact that every person I've talked to pretty much who's like actively collecting in the hobby now probably has some ties to the nostalgic factor of having collected as a child. Then if you take that principle, I think the 90s, 80s and 90s babies and people who collected then are now moving into like the generation of people who loved sports in the early 2000s. And so those cards are kind of next up regardless of sport, that I think like 2000 to 2005 are kind of the next ones to get renewed attention on them. And that era is kind of a forgotten era in general. Sports cards were far less popular in the 2000s than they were in the 90s or 80s. And yet a lot of people did collect then, and they especially loved sports then. It's almost shifting the paradigm in many ways. An example outside of baseball is that a lot of the fantasy football heroes from the 2000s have been getting a lot more attention over the last year. Notable running backs who had a big like 1 to 3 year runs are like suddenly getting, like, people are going after their gold refractors and other things from the 2000s. And I think the same thing could be coming for baseball, that, you know, that Bonds, obviously from 2000 to, into the early 2000s could be in that mix. Maybe Pujols finally starts to get his due. People start to remember, because Pujols is like my favorite baseball player of all time. And people just don't realize it. He's retired now, and he wasn't good in the 2010s for the Angels, and people kind of forgot or don't know. But those who do remember and suddenly are starting to move into their early to mid 30s and maybe a little more income to work with are like, oh my gosh, I just really wanted one of those, Bowman Chrome refractors, rookie cards. So I'm going to go after that, or whatever. So some of those players, I think Pujols, Ichiro, Manny Ramirez, A-Rod, and then maybe the whole host of like really incredible pitchers, from the early 2000s could be next up.
I have zero. I do not want. I have one Alex Rodriguez card that I had to buy. Jeff and I had to buy for a set we're working on. I don't want anymore. I cannot stand Alex.
Yeah,
Rodriguez.
he's very polarizing, but a lot of people do really like his cards.
True.
But he's more polarizing. He's kind of he's kind of like Soto or Tatis or whatever. Yeah,
he's like a Tatis, but really good. Tatis is good, but Rodriguez was really good.
Yeah.
So what do we think of Bonds real quick? Do we really think his cards can continue at the rate they're going up right now? Because do we think if he's going to be a good purchase in 10 years, that's assuming the prices right now are affordable. If you paid attention, his auctions are going nuts on everything. From the ultra high end to the kind of high end. Like, do we think he really has the room to run up as much as we're saying?
What's his Topps Tiffany PSA 10? Is it like 6,500?
Let me go to
So
market.
that's like a pop. Somebody in the chat can probably
Tiffany.
loop me in on this, but about 500, 600 maybe. The Tiffany card. How many do they make? The guys here would know. 30,000 or so. Each set was a little bit different. I forget.
It's different every year. I don't think Bonds is about a 5,000 apparently, but it went for $9,000 was his last sale.
Not bad.
$9,000, really? Okay, I have two of those.
It was just barely. It's like before that sale, it was about 7,500, then 6,000. So it's really just gone up.
Yeah. Griffey's got to go up too. So somebody made a comment. Griffey's still more collected. Of the four of us, well, Scott didn't follow baseball, and he's a little bit younger than us. In the 90s, he wasn't a big baseball fan, but I feel like of the four of us, if you include Jeff, Knockout, Scott, 3 of the four of us probably were. Griffey was probably our favorite player as a kid, I'm guessing, in the 90s. No?
Cecil Fielder.
Ooh.
Okay, interesting.
But Griffey was up there.
Tony Clark was your second favorite? And
no. Griffey was very much up there.
Yeah, Griffey definitely. A chipper
Trammell.
for me than Griffey.
Oh, okay, all right. Because you guys are like real fans where you actually root for your own team. In the Red Sox, 95, 96, before we got Pedro, before Nomar debuted, we didn't have much. So I was a Griffey guy. I even went to the stadium wearing a Griffey jersey. Kind of, it was kind of telling. I wear these hats that don't have any team names on them. Don't really have too much loyalty towards specific teams. It's usually towards the player. But yeah, I think Bonds still has room to run. It's funny not to go down a rabbit hole here, but in 2020-ish, I think it was in 2020, I was somewhat new to making YouTube content, and I made a whole video about how I thought Barry Bonds was a good buy, showing off some cards and talking about the thesis and why I think it was largely around, the premise was around him getting into the Hall of Fame at some point in the near future. Maybe not like the next 4 years, but down the line, the next 10 to 20 years, talking about at the time it was the New Era Committee. You needed 9 out of 12. They voted every 4 years or something. And then those back pages reaches out to me, man of very few words. On YouTube, he talks a lot, but through text on blowout forums, he's very few words. And I know a lot of the guys in the chat know who he is. Obviously a legend who makes a lot of right calls too, even though he's a collector first and foremost. That tends to make money off some cars he sells too. But he said, for certain players, the Hall of Fame just doesn't even matter. And then the light bulb in my head went off right away. And I'm like, you're right, dude. Yes, the Hall of Fame matters to Todd Helton. The Hall of Fame matters to Joe Mauer. The Hall of Fame will matter to Francisco Lindor. But to a guy like Barry Bonds, that's so polarizing, but was so good, he already proved himself. What does the Hall of Fame really change? We already have our mind made up on him as fans, collectors, investors, whether we are okay with it or not, whether we touch those cards or we wouldn't touch them with a 10-foot pole. What is the Hall of Fame really going to tell us? It's just a subjective opinion that tends to just matter less as years go on, as you see the dilution of the quality of the Hall of Fame, these guys getting in who I don't believe are clean, some of which I used to root for, and some of the guys aren't even that good that are getting in, right? Does it really matter? Is it really going to affect how we view Barry Bonds? You can make a similar case for Pete Rose. Again, very polarizing. Is the Hall of Fame really going to change people's opinion on him? Are they going to think he's a better person? Are they going to think he was a better player?
Phil, can I say one thing?
Sure.
Him not being in the Hall of Fame might help him more than him being in the Hall of Fame.
Makes him into more of a scapegoat. Yeah, he's more of a scapegoat.
Every single year when players get inducted, they'll say the Hall of Fame is a joke because Bonds isn't in it. And that's going to keep him more relevant than if he was in the Hall of Fame. So there's an argument saying him getting in would hurt his cards, actually, in my opinion, because it wouldn't be talked about as much, which is very opposite of any other player.
Exactly.
Because even if Roger Clemens got in or didn't get in, no one cares. But Barry Bonds is his own animal.
The whole scapegoat sort of vibe is overshadowing people's hatred towards the person, the ego. He was probably a decent teammate, but you could argue that he might have been, somewhat of a cancer based on who you ask. Maybe the Pirates players got along with him better.
Well, one thing we know is Rafi Devers doesn't care about his opinion.
Yeah,
they're standing him up 3 times apparently.
Was that Bonds? Was that
No,
Will
that
Clark?
was Will Clark.
Bonds.
No.
No. Bonds just said that happened.
I did not see Bonds say
Yes,
that.
Barry Bonds just said he offered to meet 3 times with.
But they
Devers.
did meet. They talked. There's pictures of them talking and video of
I
them
don't know. I just
chatting.
Can
I know
you
because
confirm
I
that?
screen capped one for my hope for an SSP at some point. But
All
all right, this is gonna go back. Some people have mentioned Pujols, and I was thinking about Pujols. I think Pujols is my third guy because he does not get talked about a lot, and he has a lot of things that really. He has 700 home runs, and that happened in all of our lifetimes. Like we all got to watch that. He has 2 World Series rings, 3 home runs in 1 World Series game. And he also had 3 MVPs, and he has one of the most memorable postseason home runs I've ever witnessed live in my life. Like that stadium in Houston went from shaking with noise to absolute dead silence when he hit that ball up Brad Lidge. It's got to be one of the 10 most famous modern home runs ever hit. And it's him. And we're going to see that over and over as we get closer to his Hall of Fame induction. That's 700 home runs.
Yeah.
Like Manny Machado just hit his 350th.
Yeah.
And people were like, oh, this is great. Like Hall of Fame track. Like he is less than halfway to Albert Pujols.
Well, not to bring it back to Bonds, but because I love Pujols, not to bring it back to Bonds, but there's the point on Bonds was there's all these Instagram reels too, regularly cycling, and that's probably the echo chamber piece that Phil was talking about. But they are like, it's time for another episode of stats that seem fake but are real, and then it's Bonds, and it's like if you took out all 7 of his MVP seasons, he'd still have 440 home runs and 359 stolen bases, just otherworldly. But you could do the same thing with Pujols, take out his 4 best seasons and he's still got 500 home runs or something. You're just like, what the heck, this guy's
We do need to know
crazy.
that maybe half the hobby. We do need to note this because we're very Bonds happy. Half the hobby will hate him and never buy any of his cards ever, no matter what happens, because it's right. So that could limit his potential. And I think we're doing a disservice by not talking about that. I don't even see anybody opposition in our chat, surprisingly, about Bonds. But people hate him still. So even though maybe younger generation likes him, I would say the older generation who really collects cards does not like him still, which may limit his growth potentially. So
yeah, and he also didn't he cheat on his taxes and his wife? Wasn't that something swirling around later in his career?
Taxes don't bug me too much, but the wife.
Nobody in the hobby does that. But cheat on the wife. The astronomer CEO. The astronomer CEO guy, I guess when it's a powerful person, it's worse.
It hasn't stopped Cristiano Ronaldo in his card market. So,
yeah. Well, he didn't rape anyone. So
he was accused.
That we know of.
He was accused. We'll see.
Bonds was?
Oh, you're talking about Bonds.
Oh, yeah. I switched to Bonds. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man. I was like, Ty, you got some serious accusations against Bonds right now.
I'm more comparing Bonds now.
And we just libeled Barry Bonds.
Stream
We're going to cease and desist, Ty.
Yeah, somebody edit that out. Thanks.
that out
of our live stream. Okay. Is there anything else we want to hit on? Do we go till 10 more minutes, or do we wrap it up whenever?
Yeah, we got 10 minutes.
So let's talk about Mike Trout. I know we already kind of did. What's the future of Mike Trout cards? Someone asked earlier, his cards bottoming out right now. Are they at the bottom? Can they go lower? What do we think? I just mentioned I bought a Trout card for the first time because I thought there's no way they'll go for this low of a price. I threw the money out there and I got it for that low price. So do we think now's the bottom? Are you starting to look to buy? Or are you waiting still to see what happens next year? Because he could get traded this year. He could get traded in the offseason. A lot of things could happen that could bump his cards. And he's been healthy this year relative to past years.
Wow. No one knows bottoms quite like Scott. So maybe he's onto something with grabbing a big Trout right now. I don't know. My concern, I have a couple Trouts. My concern is just that, the more things Ohtani does and the more home runs Judge hits and the more mediocrity we watch come from Mike Trout and the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, Angels of Los Angeles, the less interest there's going to be in this guy. I was at that game last week when he hit 2 home runs against the Rangers. And that was awesome. We thought he hit a third, but I was about 7 beers deep. So my judgment on fly balls was not accurate at all. But yeah, I just worry. He was great, but I do think he straddles the potential line of being forgotten or largely overshadowed. Probably a better way to put it.
I think Judge really hurt him. Judge being as good as he is really hurts him.
Well, I think about these two guys. We were just talking about Pujols and how great he was before he wasn't, right?
Yeah.
Trout, how great he was before he wasn't. And like statistically just ramping up into the conversation of like greatest of all time conversation. 5-6 years ago, people were like, Trout's going to be the greatest of all time by the time he's done. And then he just can't play baseball anymore. And that's what's so hard. That's back to the odds thing too, by the way, of like, just, you think about somebody like Trout and then you think about somebody like Judge and you're like, well, I'm sure he's just probably not going to play next year. That's just where my mind goes. But if you were to look at these two guys and their markets, I would feel a lot better about buying and putting money into Pujols right now than I would Trout. Even just for that 5 to 6, 7 year like latency of like when players ramp down their career, retire, and then finally make the Hall of Fame. That's like their card markets like die at that point. They just die. And I think Trout's already kind of like going through that period right now a little bit.
But does that make Trout a better buy then if he's going through that period?
No, I think he's going to keep. I think he hasn't died yet. I think he's going to keep coming down personally.
Yeah, defects of life. He makes a comment about basically what's the catalyst for Trout to make a meaningful rebound. And Tyre just talked about that. So like, this could be close to the bottom, but what are we talking, like a 10, 20, 50% move over the next 10 years up? Like you do better in the S&P 500.
The only thing that could catalyze Trout's card market and overall interest and popularity at this point is if he were traded away from the Angels to a team like Philly or New York and then shows up big time in the playoffs. And if he were to do that, his card market would lose its, you know what? Like, I really think it would. And like, not as a flash in the pan. I think people would just be like, this is what that guy always deserved and needed. I posted on Instagram yesterday that no team in Major League Sports deserves a championship more than the Detroit Lions. But I think no player arguably deserves a championship run, a chance at it more than Mike Trout. And it's crazy. Like he just hasn't, he's had such a limited sample size. And then the fact that he got struck out in that final out in the World Baseball Classic against Ohtani, it helped Ohtani and it didn't help Trout at all. And
that's the Trout highlight that we're going to see forever.
Trout highlight. That's like the big moment, like it or not. So.
Yeah, it's sad.
There's some other ones. The catch in Baltimore is big. Well, I would see that highlight. That was a cool catch.
All right, so
other stuff, but sorry, Phil.
Sorry, we're giving away a blaster before we forget.
A minute
left. We're giving away a blaster of 25 Series 2, courtesy of Jeff, who's not here. He can join us. So the trivia question is going to be, what is Juan Soto's birthday? You don't need the year, just the month and day. And whoever gets it right first in the chat. The reason why that's meaningful, well, because a lot of us do like Juan Soto. It's actually the same birthday as me and Mike Moynihan, who is the previous host of Hobby Palooza. We all share the same birthday. July 4th. You're incorrect, Mike Petty.
Oh, you said 14th. Is that right?
July 14th is also wrong. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Is it Christmas? Cards of Dogtown.
Cards of Dogtown's close.
But yeah, imagine if Trout gets traded to, especially if he goes somewhere like he grew up in New Jersey, like Southern New Jersey. So if he goes to Philly or the Mets and helps get that team a World Series, like imagine like him and Harper holding up the trophy together, you know, or him and Lindor. I mean, that would be enormous. Like, yeah, his hobby would absolutely explode, like Ty said. I
think so too.
That trade gets so hard to imagine. Like being at an Angels game, I can tell you, their marketing, like before the game, during the game, it's all Trout. There was like a Trout hype reel they played twice during the game. Like there's like no one's there for Logan O'Hoppe. They're just there for Trout.
And the hardest part about it, Chris, is with
Man,
Ohtani, if they trade Ohtani, it's valuable. If you trade Trout, you don't get any value back. So you lose the hype marketing, plus you have to pay a salary for Philadelphia.
Donate some money for signatures for soldiers, guys.
Yes.
It's a good cause. All right.
Thanks for watching us.
Great show, guys.
Oops, all right.
All right. Everybody stick around. The Hobby Palooza continues on. So
Did anyone get the question?
Yep.
yep,
Okay.
Adam's card closet. I'll connect
right.
the dots between the two of you. So
Awesome.
all right. Thank
All right.
you, guys.
Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, John.
Thanks.
Bye, everybody.
Love the hobby. Keep collecting baseball cards.
But hey, we want to keep the lights on here at Four Collectors Studios, so hit the like button for us, guys.
So thanks everybody for coming, and yeah, we'll see you next time on Four Collectors.
All right, guys, have a great rest of your night. Subscribe to the Four Collectors channel if you haven't done so yet, and see you soon.
All right, guys. Clemente Collector has said we hit a grand slam, so that makes me feel good.